a pleasant day. So, before everything else, let us ask for guidance to our Almighty God. A pleasant day to every one of you. And now, for today's lesson in our oral communication, it is nice to see you again. Again, I am Mr. Giancarlo Orvales, where I will be your teacher for today in our oral communication subject. So before we start in our discussion for today, let us have a review about our past discussion, which is all about the models of communication. So I will show different questions here, and you will raise your hand if you know the answer about the different models of communication. So question number 1, this model is considered as the oldest among the models of communication. What do you think is the model of communication being described here? Very well said. The answer is the Aristotle's model of communication. How about the second one? It is also called as the telephone model. So what do you think is the answer? Very good. The answer is Shannon Weaver's model of communication. How about the third one? It uses the term field of experiences. What do you think is the answer? Very good. The answer is Schramm's model of communication. How about this fourth one? This model is described as circular. Anyone in the class who would like to answer this one? Amazing! You got it right. The answer is White's model of communication. And now that we are done with our recap of our previous activity, we will now proceed to our first activity for today, which is entitled Watch, Note, and Listen. So for this activity, you will just watch a video that I will present to all of you, and you will note important details as you listen to their conversation. So you may take down notes as while you are watching this video presentation. Now that we are done watching the video presentation, let us have certain questions, some questions to ponder on. So who are the people talking in the video? Very well said. So there are two individuals here. And what is the content of their conversation? Anyone in the class who would like to share their answer with us? Amazing. So they're talking about how to take care of oneself. And how did they communicate with each other? What do you think? How did they communicate? Any one of you? Amazing. They are talking face to face. So these questions somehow related to our lesson for today, which is all about the elements of communication. So before we proceed on our lesson for today, let me show you our objective. So first is to examine or sample oral communication activities. Second, explain the nature and process of communication and employ various communicative strategies in different situations. And now that we are done showing the objectives of our lesson, let us now proceed to our lesson for today. So there are different kinds of elements of communication, and these elements of communication is essential or vital to have an effective and efficient communication. So the first element that we have is what we call the speaker. So when we're talking about the speaker, it is the one who is talking or the one who creates the message. So it is the one who speaks in a conversation. So again, when we're talking about speaker, it is the one who talks, and second, it is the one who creates the message. Our second element is message. So when we're talking about message, it is what the speaker wants to say, or what is the content that he wants to say to the other person that he or she is talking with. Aside from that, message is also defined as it is being delivered to the listener. So again, the speaker is the one who talks, and the message that they say or they speak is what we call the message. And the message is being delivered to our third element, which is called as the listener. So we're talking about the listener, it is called as the receiver of the message. So our keyword here for listener is receiver. So it is the one who receives a specific message. Again, speaker, it is the one who speaks. Message, it is the content being sent by the speaker and being delivered to the listener. On the other hand, the listener is the one who receives the message. Next is what we call channels. So when we're talking about channels, it is how the message is sent and received. So other terms for channels, it is mode and medium. So there are different types of channel. There are three types. First is verbal, non-verbal, and written. So when we're talking about verbal, you are speaking, or the way on how message is delivered is through the use of mouth or talking face to face with another person. Next is when we're talking about non-verbal, these are gestures or mannerisms that doesn't require the speaking voice or our mouth to deliver a specific message. For example, if you understand a lesson, instead of saying yes verbally, you are just nodding your head. So in the act of nodding your head, you are giving the signal to the speaker or to your teacher that you understand a specific lesson. That is example of non-verbal channel. And written is a way where one writes rather using verbal and non-verbal. They intend to write their message. For example, if you're the one you're talking with lives far away, instead of, and there are no means to talk personally, and they can't see your mannerisms or gestures, you will write on a specific paper containing a specific message that you want to receive. So again, when we're talking about channels, it is the mode or way on how a message is being delivered. There are three types of channel. First is verbal, second is non-verbal, and third is written. Our next element is what we call the response. So the response is the reaction of the listener to the speaker's message. So once the message has been delivered to the listener, and whatever he or she reacts, that is the response. For example, a boy told a girl that she looks beautiful today. And after hearing that, the girl said thank you, and he turned, and her face turns red. So the her verbal response, which is thank you, is a response, and also a verbal response to make it specific, and the way on how her face turns red, that is an example of non-verbal response because it doesn't require verbal or to say it orally. Next is what we call feedback. So feedback is the version of response on the speaker's part. So again, when we're talking about response, it is the reaction of the listener from the message. However, when talking about feedback, it is the response of the speaker once he or she receive the response of the listener. So it's kinda difficult. So let me show you an example. So our first example on the response is when the guy told a girl that she looks beautiful today, and the girl suddenly turned red and she said thank you. That her response to what has the guy has been said, it is an example of response, and how it will turn into feedback. So when the guy saw that the girl turns red because of what he has said, the guy's face also turned red. So the way on how the guy sees the reaction of the girl upon what he had said, that is his feedback. So again, when we're talking about response, it is the reaction of the listener to the speaker's message, while feedback is the reaction of the speaker to the listener's response. So again, response, listener, feedback, speaker. So I hope that you are getting it. And next is what we call noise. So noise is any barrier to communication. So a noise can affect the quality or the content of a specific message. So there are different types of noise. First is physical, physiological, and psychological. So what are these different types of noise? So when we're talking about physical noise, it is a kind of noise that exists in our physical environment. Example is if there is a road maintenance or there is some accident that happens on the road, then you are talking with someone on the same road, you are experiencing difficulties in hearing your friend because there are present noises on the physical environment. So as long as it is physical or it happens in our environment, that is physical noise. So for example, you're talking with your friend and there is a ongoing road construction, she can understand you. So next is what we call the physiological noise. So when we're talking about physiological noise, it is a kind of noise that takes place on the person's body. If the speaker or the listener is experiencing sickness, so that is an example of physiological noise. For example, there are two persons. One is a guy and the other is a girl who is experiencing sickness. So when the guy told the girl that she looks beautiful today, the girl cannot understand because she is experiencing headache. So her headache is an example of physiological noise because it is a type of noise that affects it is a type of noise that coming from her body that affects how she receives the message. So as long as the noise is a type of sickness or a type of disability, it could fall under physiological noise. However, psychological noise also takes place in the human's body. However, it is focused on the human psyche or the human mind. So it is somehow different from physiological noise. So physiological noise, it is all concerns about sickness, illness. However, psychological, it is all about the mind. For example, they are having mental disorder or mental problems, it falls under psychological noise. For example, a girl told a person undergoing some mental problem She asked her if she wants to eat her spaghetti, but the guy didn't answer because he couldn't hear it because of his problem in his psyche. So that is an example of psychological noise. So let us have a review of what we have discussed for today. So there are 7 elements of communication: speaker, the one who speaks the message. The message is the content delivered from the speaker to the listener. Listener is the one who receives the message. Channels are the ways on how a message is being delivered. It is divided into 3: verbal, non-verbal, and written. Response is the feedback or reaction of the listener from the message that he or she receives, and feedback is the reaction of the speaker from the response of the listener. And lastly, noise. It is any type of noise that affects communication. So there are 3 types of noise: physical, physiological, and psychological. So before we proceed in our next activity, do you think that what would happen if one element of communication is missing? Anyone who would like to share? So each 7 elements is very essential because however each elements of communication is essential because if there is one missing on these elements, it could have the communication would be not successful, or the message will not be delivered to the listener. However, the 7th one, noise, can be excluded from this one. So noise can be an option. So because the presence of noise itself can alter the message being delivered. So again, the important elements here that we should not forget is the first to the 6th element. So noise is somehow it causes problems rather than helping the communication. So now that we are done with our discussion for today, let us have another activity entitled Lights, Camera, Action. So the class will be divided into 2, and each group will be given 5 minutes to simulate a conversation based on the following prompts. So the group 1 will be in a classroom scenario, and the second group will be focusing on a formal event. So now, time's up. Let me show you your presentations. So now that we are done presenting your presentations, let us now proceed to our small short quiz to test your understanding. So on a 1-4 sheet of paper, please write numbers 1 to 6 and answer the following questions. Identify what is the element being discussed in these 6 items. So write your answers only. Time's up. So here are the answer. So number 1 is speaker, number 2 noise, number 3 listener, number 4 feedback, number 5 channels, and number 6 is response. So you kindly Mr. President, kindly collect the papers of the class. And now for your assignment, you will now have a research about the different dimensions of communication, because I will ask some of you to share your insights about our next topic. So now, see you next meeting. I hope that you have learned something. Thank you and goodbye.